about them gas prices, all about who whip the nicest. All about them deals on bundles, Harold Fleet don't make them up. Face beating red bottoms, dead beats we hear about them. Fitted up from head to toe, but never had their children's do. Wonder why they dying by the dozens, but it's simple, yo. Just listen. It's time we stop ignoring facts. It's time we take our family back. Fix the root and then attack. Stop making moves without a plan. Control emotions, then we stand. Calling on my kingdom and to come together. Take this land. We gotta fight, our future depends. Get the head back in order, cause that's where it begins. Invest your all into your garden, water the roots to the end. Nurture the family tree and let the fruit feed all men. Just listen.
Welcome to another episode of A Mile in My Shoes, where we ask the question, how can we say we know someone if we've never heard their story? How y'all feeling tonight? I hope everybody had a great day. Tonight's guest, Mrs. Christina, has a powerful story to tell of trauma, abuse, and overcoming and truly finding out who you are and standing in your truth. So without any further ado, I'd like y'all to welcome Mrs. Christina as she tells her story. Miss Christina.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Look, first out, all I want to tell you, thank you for coming. Look, for those who don't know, this was one of my old managers at the Camping World, one of the toughest female ladies I know. If you know anything about the sales industry, especially cars and RVs, if you're a female that can survive in that industry, you gotta be somebody tough, built different. So, Miss Christina, we're gonna sit back and enjoy and listen and walk a mile with you in your shoes. Start it off, Miss Chris.
Well, my name's Christina. I am 45 years old, and I am from Texas. I currently live in Texas. And it's a very hard story, long story, but I think a lot of us have had. I don't know where you want me to start.
Wherever you're comfortable. Let's start in the home as a child. How did it start off?
I have very vivid memories, probably from a time where I probably shouldn't. I remember almost dying probably about 3 times. I want to say I was under 4. First time I ever almost died was my mom threw me in the pool when I was like a baby. My grandparents had a pool right next to the house where we lived, and I remember her dropping me in the deep end of the pool and my dad diving in to get me. But I remember that. You know what I mean? And
trauma.
Right. And my dad did solidify that, because I asked him a couple years ago when I saw him. But another time, look, I'm not going to say anything bad about my parents. My parents did the best that they could with the abilities that they had to become parents, which they weren't very good at it. But my mom had custody of us, and she was very abusive. Mentally, physically, emotionally. I was the oldest. I have a sister that is from my father, and I have a half sister, and I have a half brother. 3 different, but either way. I'm a firm believer that my mom and my dad got married. They met under strange circumstances. They went on a double date.
That's my signal to the crowd to like up that post who just said that.
Oh, I can't see the chat, so I don't know.
Somebody just said they're very proud of you. Levi Allen.
Oh, that's another Camping World ex-coworker. But But yeah, no, they met on a double date with my dad's brother, my mom's sister. My parents both met each other. I guess they grew to like each other. My dad went off to the Navy. They got married and my dad went off to the Navy. And I was born at Lackland Air Force Base while my dad was in the Navy, along with my sister. My dad got out of the Navy when right after my sister was born. So I was 4. I think I was 4, somewhere around there. And they got divorced. And there was the tumultuous time of, I remember me and my sister sitting on the curb in the south side of San Antonio, waiting for dad to come pick us up, and he never arrived. And, mom was like, well, that's your dad, that's how he is, blah, 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 blah. That's hard and that's hurtful to be a child, to feel that way. Like, why doesn't he want to come pick us up? He said he was coming, you said he was coming, things like that. But it was because I was the oldest, I took a lot of the abuse. We were country kids, just blowing up bullfrogs and playing in the baseball field. We were playing in the pig pens and horses and cows and all that other stuff. And something just would spark and I would get, beaten. I would go to school a lot of times with bruises, and my teachers were like, wow, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. And the one time I remember I was about 9 years old. I'm going to kind of go past that a little bit. I was 9 years old, and I had just gotten really, really like blacked and blued from my mom just yelling at me. And I went to that night, a gun was held to my head and I was told that if I see you the next morning. I went to school. My teacher had seen me and she's like, that's it. I can't do it anymore. She signed me out of school. While she drove me home and she said, where's your safe place? I said, I need to go home and get some stuff. And so we went home. She helped me pack my stuff up.
Yeah.
And we loaded her car up. And I remember my sister saying, take me with you. And I said, I can't right now because I don't know where I'm going. And that was hard. But we drove to my friend's house at the time. My teacher had driven me there. And the funny thing is that my mom's sisters were there telling me, don't go. She didn't mean it. Don't worry about it. You know how it is, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to go anywhere. And I knew at that point that if I didn't say no, I would not be here where I'm at. And it just so happened that my dad had just come back from his honeymoon, being married to his second wife. When they, one of my mom's closest sister, I don't remember if it was a sister or somebody, had driven me to my dad's house, my grandparents' house where my dad was. And cops were called. And the cops had me in my grandparents' backyard undressing so that they could take pictures of me while I was 9, almost 10 years old. And one of the uncles that had abused me throughout the entire time was standing in the doorway watching me. And that was not just humiliating, but like, when is it ever going to end? No. But so that ordeal was over.
Drop some hearts for Christina for being strong enough to tell her story, man. Please. Drop some hearts for Christina for having the courage to speak on these things, man. You about to set some people free, Miss Christina. Trust me. Trust me. Hey. Continue.
So life with my dad was all right. I think my dad has his own problems. I don't know the medical diagnosis of my father, but I think my dad had some sort of like flashbacks. My dad was immensely in love with my mother. He's never gotten over my mother. He loves my mother. And living with my dad and my stepmom was actually really nice. She grew to be like a mother to me because she was there when I needed somebody. My dad was your typical father. He laid sod in the yard and had the neighborhood kids come over and help. And he had pizza and sodas for everybody, taught me how to ride my first bike. I was like 13, 14 years old. Um, he was a very hard worker. I remember going to school, coming home, my dad getting off of work. We went to his second job where he cleaned offices with me and my stepmom. And then he cleaned another business's offices, in San Antonio, downtown San Antonio. And so I remember that, I was studying for my exams, playing it in my head, and, my walkie-talkie, and cleaning up offices and desks and throwing out trash and stuff like that. And then it's just like, for something, I don't know what happened, but I think sometimes pressure gets too much to people and you just don't realize in that moment what people are going through when they go through things. My dad, it's funny, my sister came to live with us for a little bit, and we were in the my dad's he had a Blazer, and me, my sister, and my stepmom, and my sister was looking through the like the back end of the truck, and she was like, "What is this?" She thought she was going to get me in trouble, and it was this styrofoam cup with money wrapped around, and inside that money was some condoms. And my sister said, "What is this? Is this yours, Christina?" And I was like, what? No. And my stepmom looked at it and she's like, "No, that wouldn't be hers. Why would it be in this vehicle?" Well, that started the divorce proceedings. And my dad left me with my stepmom, his daughter. I was 16 at the time, 15, 16 years old at the time. And at that point, I think I didn't care. I remember going to court and talking to the lawyers, and he was there, across the table from my stepmom and myself. And they asked me who did I want to live with, and I said, her.
Yeah.
She didn't have to choose me. She didn't choose me. She was involved in this relationship with this man who had children, and she didn't have to take care of me like she did. Anything I ever wanted and needed. She enrolled me in modeling classes when in high school because that's what she wanted. There was some crazy stuff where I couldn't leave the house unless I had a full face of makeup and dressed to the nines. I always had to be how my sister calls me, prissy Chrissy. I was always the prissy one. I was never rough and tumble. I was the sweetest one ever. I just thought my shit didn't stink. At that time it didn't. I knew what I had, but for me at that time, you don't really connect the dots when you're that young. You just know my mom said I was fat and ugly, and I was just like my dad, and my dad was like, you don't want me, why, I'm your father, yet you're choosing other people over me, and it's like I never realized what my parents went through in their own lives until here recently when my mom passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah, my mom passed away two years in January of stage 4 breast cancer. At least that's what we think it was. We knew it was breast cancer. We saw it. She gave us 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Me, my sisters, and my brother, we spent 2 weeks with my mother. Yeah. While we were all going through our own battles, we were there giving her strength so we could take her pain away from her.
Right.
But I'll get on that in a separate story later. But yeah, so high school, I went to high school. I met my first true boyfriend, I guess you could say. I was a freshman, he was a senior in high school, and he went into the military, into the Air Force. And, he and his family took me in. They knew They knew my dad. They knew the situation that happened with them. And they kind of took me under their wing and, you know, helped me see a different side of family, you know, because they were all military brats. All of them were military
Right.
brats. My, you know, my first husband grew up a military brat. He became military. So they had their own very, very intriguing family dynamic. But his father, Mr. Jim, was my dad.
Yeah.
He was very caring, and I remember all throughout high school, I'd always had female issues. I had started when I was 10, and I always had problems, like excruciating, balled up in a, you know, in the fetal position, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. He would literally just carry me to the emergency room every time. Just, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. You know, it's just something that happens. You know, you'll be okay. It's great. I was told I couldn't have any kids. So my first husband, well, he had proposed to me, and he went off to basic training. And well, I said yes. And then when he came back, we had gotten back together, kind of rekindled a whole bunch of stuff, and he was going to go to Cuba. And I found out I was pregnant. My senior year, right before I entered into my senior year of high school. So instead of us waiting when he got back from Cuba to get married, we got married right before I entered in my senior year of high school. And at that time, when right before I got married, I found out I was pregnant, like I said, and I went home. Actually, my stepmom took me to the doctor's office, and she began to beat the ever-living crap out of me. She was trying to get me to abort the baby.
Why
You're gonna
you
ruin
afraid?
your life. This is not what I raised you to be. How could you? You've just ruined the family. Like, everything was about her and the family, and not about me becoming a woman, and, you know, things like that. So the cops were called. My fiance at the time was called. We packed up as much as we could, and I went to go live with him and his family until we got married, and we got an apartment. But we had a roommate at the time. He had a roommate at the time, so we just moved in with him. Yeah. So that was my first child.
Man. Look, the trauma continues.
Yes.
So I got a question. Like, how did you manage the trauma at such a young age?
You know, I always had faith. Was brought up in the church. My grandparents instilled in us. They took us to church every Sunday. Every time, Wednesday, any day of the week we went with them. It was back in those days, grandparents took whatever grandkids were around wherever they went. And that's what my grandparents did. They raised us hardworking, dedicated. You know, it wasn't about, of course, you know, being in a Hispanic family, emotions are flying everywhere. It seems like everybody's yelling at you. They're talking 100 miles a minute in Spanish and English and, you know, whatever the case may be. Where, you know, back in the day when we couldn't come inside until it was dark outside. You know what I mean? You didn't come inside for a drink of water, sweetheart. There's a hose out there. Agarra la manguera.
Shout out to them days again. I miss those days, man.
I'm telling you.
Those days.
I'm telling you. But yeah, I had a very deep, devout belief that I made it this far. It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a straight A student. I was in the National Junior Honor Society. I was in the honor roll. I had straight A's.
With all that going on.
High school, all throughout middle school and high school. I went to college in the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I took college courses because I wanted, it was a program that they had offered in South Texas at UTSA for computer science.
Yeah.
And I took that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I was in the National Honor Society, like I said, all throughout middle school. I had straight A's. And I went to high school. Again, gifted and talented classes. I had, AP everything. I graduated when I found out I was pregnant going into my senior year. I said, I'm not going to be pregnant all the way up until I graduate. So I graduated in December, right before Christmas break. I didn't have that many classes to take. So most of my classes were electives because I knocked out calculus and trig and, all that other stuff. And this was funny. Right before I got pregnant, I applied to the Air Force Academy and got accepted. And then I found out I was pregnant and I couldn't attend. So that was that. But for me, I was okay with that because I saw I'm going to get married. I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be a wife. I'm going to be able to have what I didn't have.
Yeah.
We had our struggles. We had $40 after, the bills were paid on, airmen's pay. We didn't have a lot, but we made it happen.
Right.
We still had a baby and did the best. I thought the best that we could, and we probably messed up both of our kids. Honestly, I have to say that because again, you hurt people.
Yeah.
You don't realize you're hurting someone until it slaps you in the face. When you get slapped in the face, do you feel the sting or do you feel the wind catching up to you? It's unfortunate. And I've I was talking to my ex, my first husband, the other day, and I was like, I'm really sorry for everything I put you through. And he said, we grew up and we grew out of each other. And for me, I think I could never break that anger I had inside. And I didn't realize I had so much anger until I had kids.
Ooh. Now, how did having kids make you realize that?
Because I had no patience.
Oh.
I wasn't taught patience.
Isn't it funny how like unhealed and undealt with trauma brings us right back to the people that we said we would not be like?
It's a full circle. It's a full circle. But again, we never were taught coping mechanisms. You'll be fine. Get back up and go.
Yeah.
You will be fine. There were no coping mechanisms. If I had dealt with my father not showing up, I probably wouldn't have been married as many times as I have. Yeah. Searching for that love. Because I've always been a very loving, giving person. Honey, I got you, boo. I will hug you. I will kiss you. I'll give you everything you ever want. I will cook and clean and take care of you inside and out. Did I ever get that in return? That longing, that yearning, that craving of, I just want someone to love me for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had to realize who I was. Because you can crave all the love and attention you ever want. But if you don't know what love is, you're getting the wrong message.
There's some good stuff right here.
You know what I mean?
So what brought you to that place where you started to realize those gaps, and what did you do as far as to go through healing, and like how did you started going towards that place where you are now? What caused that shift to where it's like, okay, something has to be done?
Yeah, well, this was a long time ago, and my journey has been very long once I started healing. I got divorced from my first husband and had to move back to the States because I couldn't get a visa to work in Germany. So while we were getting divorced, I knew nothing of divorce. I didn't know the ins and outs of it. He said, hey, we're going to share an attorney and read this piece of paper, sign it. It'll be done. It'll be good to go. Well, I was a housewife.
Oh,
He was military. So he had the vehicles, he had the housing,
man.
he had the paycheck. I had a job. I managed the club systems in for the Air Force on base. I actually assistant managed both club systems on two bases. So I had worked. But when you're supporting a family whose husband is away at war, your money gets drained by kids' clothes. You need clothes because I was a manager. I had to dress the part. I had to be professional, heels and slacks and shirts and, things like that, blouses.
So you was doing the working and the mom at home.
Full-time job, full-time, every way possible. You know, I'm not going to say I was a perfect wife because I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I had my faults too.
Yeah.
I was like, he's away. I knew my kids were fed, taken care of. They were at
Mm-hmm.
school. I worked, you know.
Yeah.
But when we got divorced, I had to come back to the States. And I stayed with my mom for a little bit, and then I wound up moving to Phoenix, Arizona. My husband's parents were there, and they said the kids are going to be moving here because I lost everything. I had nothing. I
Yeah.
had nothing but whatever the military sent back with me. They said, come stay with us for a little bit to get on your feet, get you a job, get you a place, a car, whatever. We'll help you out however way we can, but that way you'll be close to the kids. I said,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. So I left to Arizona, stay with them. I got a job. I actually had two jobs. I was working for an insurance agent, and I got a bar manager job at night. So, I did my thing. And then something happened, and I still haven't been able to put the pieces together, but I lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still trying to replay that time frame in my head so that I could kind of figure out what led me to I didn't have much. I was still staying with my in-laws, but
Yeah.
I had a job, and I had just gotten my first car,
Mm-hmm.
on my own with no cosigner, nothing. And I lost my job, and I got told I needed to leave where I was living, and I wound up homeless. Like nothing ever happened. Um, my ex-husband at the time had said, hey, I'll help you out any way you can. That way, because he lived on base. And his wife at the time had said, no, not going to happen. I said, I'll sleep in the garage. I don't care. I just need a roof over my head. I'll pay you whatever I can, whatever. And they're like, no.
Mm.
I said, okay. So I wound up staying just on park benches. I would go to the gas station and clean up, and I would hustle all day, every day looking for a job. Just boom, boom, trying to, people don't realize that when you're homeless, if you don't have an address, you can't really apply for a job because you need an address. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had one friend who said, you can use my address to get till you get a job. And then, but yeah, I'm thinking I'm disgusting. I'm trying to find a job. Well, it took me about 3 weeks to a month, but I did. I got 3 jobs, 2 bartending jobs and a bar manager job.
Mm-hmm.
I hustled. Within about a month and a half, someone had gifted me a car. It was nothing much. It was just an old beater that smoked like hell every time I stopped at a stop sign at a stoplight. I wound up getting back in Phoenix. They had these hotel rooms that they converted into apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked there. I mean, I lived there, and then I wound up getting a job they were building airplanes out there, one of the old airports. So I got a job there as a temp for
Yeah.
hire, making pretty good money. And I just built up from there.
Yeah.
I was working at a bar as a bartender, and I had, well, being homeless, you don't really eat a whole lot. So I had lost like a whole lot of weight.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my second husband, who worked right next door. He was a mechanic, and he would come in, and I would just say, he was like, "You want to go out?" And I said, "No, I don't date my patrons." He was like, "Well, I don't have to come back." I was like, "You need to come back because you're the one that's tipping me, so keep it coming." I was like, "But I don't." But then I didn't dedicate any of my time to dating. It was just I was focused. This is
On a
what I
mission.
needed to do.
Yeah.
It was a goal of mine to succeed because I
Yeah.
had no other choice. I was already at bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he just kept coming in, coming in, coming in. I said, "All right, fine, I'll go. I'll give you a chance." And he wined and dined me. Anything I ever wanted, I had. You know, um, he had 2 kids. I had 2 kids. Seemed like
Mhm.
it was, working out. And we were in the same city as where my kids were staying with their
Mhm.
dad. So it was like it was a great transition, you know what I mean? I was gifted a house, I was gifted a brand new Tahoe. I had started working for an RV place where I got my start in the RV industry as a service advisor, and then moved my way up until I was the service manager
Mhm.
out there. And you know, you don't realize when I never wanted to get divorced the first time.
Yeah.
And getting married the second time, I was like, this is pretty good. He was a very handsome man. He was a good dad. He was a very hard worker. Partied hard, played hard. You know what I mean? Worked hard, partied hard, played hard. And it's like we had a group of friends that would get together, and we all worked together. The girls worked together, the guys worked separately, but we all got together after work and just, we just had a good time. We drank, we ate, we would go over to each other's houses. We would go out and do couples weekends or whatever. It was just a great old time.
Mhm.
And then come to find out that my husband at the time was sleeping with my best friend.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. And at that point, I consider myself a little nomad and a gypsy, I guess, because the kind of the way that I have grown up. We moved around so much that I was okay to just be like, "See you
Yeah.
later," and I did.
Mhm.
He left the house. I sold every single piece of furniture in that house. Pennies on the dollar. I didn't care. I just needed money to move.
Mhm.
And at that time when he had cheated on me, I was like, "Two can play this game."
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I did. And that was actually one of the people who helped me move back to Texas.
Yeah.
you know and I got so much back. "How could you leave your kids? How could you do this? They need you, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, yes, they do, but they need a successful mother, not just a
Yeah.
mother who's trying to survive. You can't pour out of an empty cup.
Somebody type that in the comments, man. You can't pour out of an empty cup. Mhm.
You can think your cup is full, and it's just probably the residue from its evaporation. I don't
Now,
know.
now, how was that dealing with that, knowing that you love your children, but knowing also you didn't have it in you to give to them, and you wanting to give them something so much more? Like, how was that on the mind?
I have to say I probably had a bit of a selfishness back then, and saying,
Shout out to Robbie in the comments, man.
what?
Robbie Freeman in the comments say you can't pour out of an empty cup, man. What's going on, Robbie, man?
There
So
you
again, the question I have: how did you get to the point? Because I know when I met you,
go.
just the strength and the way you would speak and how you would treat others. Like how do you even maintain that? Like how did you harness that?
So one time when I was homeless, and this is kind of where I had started in the beginning, and I'm sorry, I go off on tangents a lot.
Oh, no. We listen.
Um,
Look, you got us tuned in, man. You got us tuned
the
in.
when I was homeless, I remember saying, "Why me, God? Why do I always have to suffer? Why is this happening to me? Why? Why?" Like, I would walk up and down the streets and I would constantly say, "Why do I need to hurt
Yeah.
for others to be happy?"
Mm.
And I remember I stopped dead in my tracks and I said, "You stupid bitch. Why not you?"
Mm.
I had to stop asking why to him and start asking why to me.
Run that back again. Somebody type that one too. I had to stop asking why to him and start asking why to me.
Mhm.
Hold up. Somebody drop some hearts because I need a moment for that one to settle in my gizzard. Ooh, man. I had to stop asking why to him. Break that down. What does that mean?
That means, and I know a lot of people have this. Why do I need to pray? He never answers my prayers because you, honey, don't answer your own.
Mm.
When you start asking the questions of yourself, why me? Well, let's take a step back.
Mm.
First off, why not you? They say God gives his biggest struggles to his greatest warriors. We are all warriors. We just refuse to see that.
Mm.
You know, I look back and like I said, when I literally stopped dead in my tracks and I was talking to myself and I said, you have the power to see where everything has led you to this exact point. Because we all make decisions. Every single one of us, good, bad, indifferent. Every decision we have made throughout our entire life, whether we choose to believe we made them or not, or they were made for ourselves, we still have made choices that take us into this path. You choose left, you choose right, or you choose straight. A lot of people like to go backwards.
Mm.
But last time I checked, the windshield is bigger in the front and the rear view mirror is small.
Mm.
Because when you look forward, you have all of this in front of you, whether you choose to see it or not.
Mm.
But when you look back, that rear view mirror is so small and you can only see a certain part of it. And why is that?
Mm.
Because you're not supposed to look back.
Somebody type in the comments, don't look back, man. Don't look back, man. Now, another question, man. Going towards your path of liberation, what are some of the things that you did?
Well, I stopped making excuses for my bad behavior.
No excuses in the comments, man. Somebody type no excuses, man. That's
Like
number
I
one.
said, it has been a very long journey. I've made a lot of mistakes. I have hurt a lot of people. And you know what? The 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 turning point, true turning point for me was my mom passing. At that time, I was dating a man for 7 years, whatever, after my third divorce from, you remember Leo, from his dad. And the man was great. He took very good care of me, but he was an alcoholic and a humongous narcissist. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not a narcissist, honey. I'm a Leo. We crave that attention. And if we don't get that attention the way we want it, that forked tongue comes out. Okay. We bite.
Yeah.
We bite with venom. But when my mom was passing away, I drove where I lived in Louisiana at the time in Brobridge, well,
Mm-hmm.
in Youngsville, drove to South Texas to spend the time with my mom and my siblings. The entire time I was there with my mom, he kept texting me, "You're over there seeing somebody else. I can't believe you left me like this," because he was going through his own ordeal at the time. He was an alcoholic
Yeah.
and he had wound up being hospitalized because of it. Like they thought he had a mass in his liver. His funk, like he would drink to the point to where he would have to go cold turkey, and then he wouldn't eat for weeks because his body was trying to feed him.
Robbie said, "Don't look back, only forward. God has a plan for your life. Believe it."
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I was taking care of him. Got him out of the hospital, and I had to feed him, change him. Because he had no functions. I had to bathe him. I had to everything that you do for a child is what I did for him. This is a man who was 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
And his coping capabilities were not there because, again, we weren't taught how to harness our coping capabilities. We just figured, that's his excuse was, I've been drinking since I was 18. That's what we do in South Louisiana.
Yeah. Yeah.
But while my mom was passing away, I had lost my job. I was working for a broker, and he had called my boss and told my boss some stuff that my boss had never told me, but I can surmise what he had said. And my boss was like, I'm going to give you a little severance. Go take care of your mom, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, my mom was passing, and I was there with my sisters, and we were going through our ordeal with that, and memories and stuff. And he was texting me and calling me and telling me my stuff's out on the front lawn because he thought I was out there, canoodling with somebody else. And I've never cheated on the man in my life. But so I was battling two battles. My mom's passing away, and I'm trying to give her all my strength, but I've got this sorry piece of shit taking all my strength away from me because my focus was somewhere else. I was calling on the phone outside talking to him, and I'm crying, and I was like, my sister had said, F him. He doesn't need that from you. You are better than that.
Yeah.
Be yourself. And my mom passing away, I looked at my mom and I saw how freaking strong my mom was. How she didn't knew she was sick for a year and a half before she told us, and she gave us 2 weeks.
Yeah.
She still maintained her life. She went to work. My mom worked 2 jobs as a nurse. She finally bought her own car. She bought an apartment in Corpus Christi. That woman was a hustler.
Now I see where it come from.
When you met me, I was in that middle of, I had enough, and I needed to remember who the hell I came from. And that was Gloria. Because, like I said, you never realize what your parents go through when they're raising you. You just know that you had a shitty childhood.
Yeah.
You were beaten, you were abused, you were verbally, mentally, whatever the case may have been. You suffered because your parents, were whatever. My mom was the oldest of 11 children. The oldest daughter of 11 children. My mom, when you look at the oldest daughter of a Hispanic family, what do? They help the parents, because both my grandparents have full-time jobs, help the parents take care of every single child underneath them. So my mom never got to play sports in high school. She never got to go have a job. Yeah. She never got to get out of the house. So the happenstance of her going out because she had to chaperone, going out on that date to meet my father, played its part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so seeing my mom go through her last days was very eye-opening, because my mom was hurting for us because she didn't want to leave us the way she left us. My mom was just about to turn 65 before she passed.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, God, I remember a few years back, my mom had written me a letter, and she apologized for everything she had done and said to me and how she was with me. And she said, I love you, and I will always love you, and you're beautiful, and you're smart. and you will always be my daughter. And when she was passing, I said, you're beautiful and you're smart and you will always be my mom.
Mm.
Full circle.
Yep.
You know, when I never hated my mom, I forgave her a long time ago, but I never forgot because I always said I wasn't going to be that way. And then it turns out I was to my first two kids.
Yeah.
I was very toxic because, you know, their dad was gone. I was home by myself. I was taking care of them, doing all this other stuff. And I was just like, stop. Just do what you're supposed to do, you know?
Yeah.
But my mom passing away had led me to,
Take your
you know,
time, Chris.
see the light, see that there's this woman who everybody who had known her, my mom was a very loving, caring person. She'd give you the shirt off her back. She would give people cash just because she could.
Mm-hmm.
God will give it back to me later.
Yeah.
She tithed. She was a very, very, very devout Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the bad side of Christianity, but her faith was very deep. You know,
Yeah.
my mom believed in her prayers. My younger sister would say her prayers to her, you know, morning, afternoon, and night as she was passing. And, you know, I would be in the kitchen cooking and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to be out here cooking. I want to be in there with her. You know, we would play games and we would make fun of each other and get my mom laughing and, you know, pushing her in the wheelchair, trying to get her up onto her bed. She falls head first. She's like, oopsie, you know, just stuff like that. And I think the day my mom passed, my mom had said, this is how freaking coordinated this woman is to the T. My mom had set up 2 weeks for us to be with her. And she planned it. She's like, I want my sisters and my brothers on this day. And then some who couldn't make it, they could come in, you know, after that or whatever. But she said, after that, that's it. I don't want anybody else over. So we had told everybody, you know, mom's wishes were, she doesn't want to see anybody. She just wants to spend the time with us. Please don't come over. This was when the time with COVID. So we had to spray everybody down. Everybody had to wear masks, you know,
Yeah.
gloves, things like that. We had to take care of her like that because she did not want to contract COVID while
On
dealing with
top of that.
dying from cancer, you know. So when we had made that notice to her sisters and brothers, they showed up that day. They barged into my mom's house the day she was passing away, and without disinfecting, without gloving up, you know, masking up, walked right into her room. And this rage just came up over me, and I said, get the F out of my mom's house now.
Mm-hmm.
You are not wanted here. This is my mother's wishes. You are disrespecting her and you are disrespecting us. Get out of my mom's house. Like, I got into their faces. One of my aunts was a sheriff's officer in full uniform. And she says, do you know who I am and what I could do to you outside of here? I said, bring it on, sweetheart, because I'll tell you exactly what my license plate number is, what my year, make, and model is. I mean, come on, you can follow me. Because if you give it to me, I will give it right back. Get out of my mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
So my sisters and brothers are trying to, you know, push us apart. And they said, well, we'll leave if your brother says we can leave. I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. So he says, please leave. They left. At that time, my mom was in the process of leaving.
Mm.
My mom heard everything. And my one solace thing that helps me get over all of that is knowing she knew I stuck up for her and that I fought for her peace.
Mm.
I listened to her wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And to my dying breath, I will fight for her. Because she deserved that no matter what. I endured in my childhood, she was still my mother, and I respected her because of everything she lost out on. You know, my mom loved to party because she never got to when she was younger.
It's funny that we get those things once we get older. It's you, you, you this is what I'm gathering from all this, Chris. As children, it's a lot of things that we don't understand until we become adults.
Right.
And then when we do understand those things, like what you're giving right now is like a strong statement to say when that light bulb does go off, make sure you cherishing every single moment you have.
Hmm.
That's what it's screaming to me right now. Like,
It does. I mean, like I said, I haven't even delved into a lot of the other aspects of you know, what I've been through, but you know, I have my oldest son is in jail right now for something he did when he was 13 years old, and he has not shaken it yet because he refuses to see his own faults.
mm,
He'll tell you, I got this, I know what I'm doing, I got this, I got this. But when you don't follow, you know, rules are in place for a reason, laws are in place for a reason. They tell you, don't do this, or these are the consequences. You don't follow the rules, and mama and daddy are telling you, all you got to do is behave, go to work, pay your bills, go to work, pay your bills, be a decent human being.
yeah,
There's, and if you don't grasp that in here, and you don't feel it in here, I'm sorry, but
consequences coming.
consequences coming. And don't get me wrong, I love my child, I love all of my kids, but I'm not going to reward you for doing something you said you weren't going to do. You've changed. Well, obviously you haven't, because you know the zebra doesn't lose its stripes.
Hmm. Look,
But then
sometimes
again, but then again, I'm a perfect example of somebody who does and can change, you know.
Levi said, is it Levi or Levi?
Levi.
Levi says the power to forgive is such an important part of our spiritual journey. It's a significant step in our own progress. It's so incredible to hear this story. Let's drop some hearts for Levi's comment, man. The people are being inspired. We over here walking a mile in Mrs. Chris's shoes. I didn't know them shoes was that heavy, Chris.
Mm, yeah.
I look at you and I see you and I know you strong, but I didn't know the shoes was that. I didn't know the shoes was that heavy, Chris.
They're not heavy anymore.
Cause you wouldn't be able to tell none of this by just you come in every morning spunky like let's go. We got 12 campers to deliver. Come on, let's get them done. It's just, you,
You know what's funny about that? That was the start of my journey. Getting that job at Camping World, because I was so dumb. My mom had passed away. I went back, grabbed all my stuff, came back to San Antonio during the blizzard of 2021. Is that what it was? 20,
mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. And then my ex at the time had called me and said, I need you. And I said, no, I'm not coming back. Well, he had one of the shotguns, cocked it, and like he was going to commit suicide. And so I'm calling up his family saying, go get him, go get him. They're like, he's fine. Leave him alone. He's fine. Me, being the kind, caring person, no matter what you've done to me, drove right back through the snow to go and make sure he was okay. Because nobody else in his family would take care of him or go and see that he was okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went back to that situation and I got hired on a Camping Road. When I got that job, my confidence level just grew. I knew I could do that job. That job was mine and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I did, and did I?
You got it. And look, was a beast, a pure D beast.
Being a woman, not just because it was me and Danielle in that shop. She was the internal advisor, and then I was the operations manager, and it was running a shop full of men, 14 bays, 14 men, plus your detail crew, and all y'all
All of
salesmen,
dealing with all of us too at the
and
same time.
the advisors at the same time being yelled at as, why isn't this done yet? What you mean it's not done yet? We stayed till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Remember? Who's that?
Robbie said, Camping World made many of people lose their mind. Look, that's a
Oh,
whole nother segment by
that's
itself right there, Robbie.
that's a prerequisite for working with Camping World.
That's
Hello.
Hey, Robbie, we would have to do a whole segment
Mhm.
alone about Camping World.
Yeah,
So, Miss Chris, okay,
yeah,
I want to know if we can bring this all together.
yeah.
And you have individuals who've dealt with the issues younger, dealt with abuse, dealt with trauma,
Mhm.
dealt with the difficulties in the relationships. What would you give them if you could talk to Christina back then? What would you tell
Keep it simple, stupid.
them?
Kiss. Not every step needs to be a battle. It's hard because, like growing up, you don't know your worth.
Hmm.
Getting my mom passing away and getting that job at Camping World saved my life
Wow.
because I realized you got this, babe. You are so much stronger than you give yourself. You don't need validation from anybody because you validate yourself every day.
Hold up. Say that again. You know what?
You don't need validation from anybody else because you validate yourself every day.
Somebody type that. Yanni, can you type that, please? You don't need validation from man. If we could get that, Chris, do you know how many years we spend looking for validation from the outside and
Mhm.
what that causes?
It's a constant battle. I mean, dating, entering into a working environment that you have no clue that of what you're doing or even the people around you. You're constantly looking for validation. I need everybody to like me because that's the only way you're going to work together. No, that's not how it works. I have every job I have ever had, I have made my path. I've either worked up or worked out. Yeah.
I look back and think about a lot of the issues that I faced, and it all stemmed in some way
Mhm.
looking for validation from people.
Right. But that's what we're taught. You want your boyfriend or you want a guy to look at you. What do? You redo your hair, you do your makeup, you do Botox, lip injection. And I don't care if you do that, but please go ahead, be you. But we're all looking for this perfect body, this perfect face, this perfect hair, but no one's worried about what's in here. No one's worrying about what's in here. My soul is far worthy, more worthy than anything else that anybody else could give me. My heart is so worthy of my own love. My mind is worthy because of the knowledge that I've placed inside of my head throughout my life.
You better speak, man.
My ears are worthy because I choose to listen to other people's stories, other people's journeys, other people's guidance. I have friends that I know love me no matter what. I cannot talk to them. I don't have to talk to them for years. But if I call them up or text them up in a heartbeat, what you need, girl? You all right? Same thing for any of my friends. If anybody, even if I've only known you for a day or a week, if you call me up and say, I just need somebody to talk to, come on in, give me a hug. Let's go. Let's go talk. Because I know Out of everything I've been through, everything I've seen, the journeys that I've been on, I've been to many places. I've traveled. I've been homeless. I've had money. I barely made it. I know every aspect of my life has led me to where I'm at here today. Knowing the people that I've known, cherishing the ones that I want to cherish, and those that just don't see me how I see myself. The door works both ways. You can enter it and exit at the same time. You don't need to stay. But it's those that we choose to allow to stay
Mm-hmm.
that make it worthy and worthwhile.
Powerful. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Chris,
Hmm.
all I can say is thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all show Miss Chris some love in the comments. I want everybody to tell Miss Chris thank you for being with us and sharing a mile in her shoes.
Thank you for being you. And I've told you this when you and I used to have our little talks, is you have a gift. You have, and it's not, your presence is just by standing next to somebody, we can feel your energy, your love, your affection. You, my sir, are very worthy of everything that you have and everything that you are going to get.
I received that. Look, thank you for seeing me.
Thank you for seeing me.
Y'all, if y'all enjoyed tonight's episode, share it. Everybody heart probably full. I know my let me make sure, let me get these comments first before we look. The thank yous is piling in. The thank you. Look, Miss Karen. What's up? Shout out Miss Karen. We see you. Shout out Mike. I
Mr.
see you, man.
Mike,
The whole Camping World family in the
no
building, man.
kidding.
They all in the building. Take a moment, y'all, right now before we get off. Hit that share button right there on your phone. Yeah, I'm looking at I'm looking at you. Hit that share button right now on your phone. Like I said, I'm gonna upload this. Y'all join us on the YouTube page. I'm gonna have this video uploaded so you can watch it. I'm gonna share this on Chris's page and all the other platforms. Uh I just thank y'all, man. I'm full, man. Hold on. We got one more. Shout out to Robbie, man. If y'all want to look,
Robbie.
if y'all want to learn how when I was at Camping World, the game that was given, shout out to that man right there, man, who gave me the game. He gave me the game on how it goes to close a deal, man.
Hmm.
There's no greater deal closer than Robbie, man. On the real. If you need a deal closed, call Robbie.
Right.
But y'all share it. And again, Chris, I appreciate your story. Look, I took a lot of pieces from it. Look, and some heavy parts from it that I'm definitely going to apply to my life right now at this moment as we speak. It's no game and no joke. I appreciate all you've done, everything, all the talks we didn't had. You know, it's
Hmm.
always been love from day one. Look,
Absolutely.
you was a light in that building. Look, you encouraged everybody in that building. And again, y'all, share the live, and I'm gonna chop this up, and we will see y'all again on the next episode of A Mile in My Shoes with Humble Joe, man. We
Go with
out.
grace.
Love y'all.